Did you know that relationships can actually improve through fighting? Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It's Dr. Nicole, and today we are going to delve into a topic that might actually be counterintuitive, right? It might go against what we think. Because, first of all, we think that fighting and conflict are bad and we try to avoid them. But I'm going to give you some examples, some tips, and some research into how fighting can actually improve your relationship. And this is from personal experience as well as experience with clients that I've worked with, right? So, yes, you have absolutely heard it right. But before we get into it, I want to make sure that you hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, and like this video. All right. So I want you to think about how can conflict be transformative in your relationship. And there's two ways, there's a lot of ways, right? But the two core ways is that it forces us to communicate in healthier ways, and also it helps us to think about and look at the boundaries in our relationship and in how we relate to each other. So let's start with, first of all, what is this idea of fighting, right? Before you raise an eyebrow, I want you to really hear me out. Research has actually shown in a lot of different studies that healthy conflict actually strengthens your relationship. According to one study published in the Journal of Marriage and Family, couples who engage in constructive disagreements tend to have stronger bonds and a deeper understanding of each other. They know each other better. It's kind of that idea of going through things, making your bond stronger. But it's not just going through things such as trauma bonds and toxic relationships. Remember, we said constructive conflict, constructive fighting. All right. So that creates a deeper understanding of your partner, of yourself, even. And so, one thing that's really helpful or important is healthy boundaries. We always talk about it in terms of relationships, but through disagreements, you can learn to set boundaries with your partner that honors both of you all's needs. Boundaries that say or that you share with your partner what is important to you, what you value, and then also being able to listen and take in from them what is important to them and what they value. And this is something that has really come up in my own marriage, but also all of the couples that I've worked with and all of the women that I've worked with. Usually, what leads to a lot of resentment and the downfall and tension in a relationship is when there are no boundaries, right? Each one person feels like they're not being respected, another person feels like they're not being heard, and it's usually because there's no sense of what we need as individuals. It's all about just the relationship, and we start to lose sight of ourselves as individuals. And so it's really important to first start to honor your own needs so you can communicate that. And then that forces, or, in a healthy relationship where you respect each other, that forces the other person to really pause and say, what are her boundaries? What does she actually need? And why is this important to her? Okay. And so I told you it's two things, right? The healthy communication and the boundaries. So I share with you the boundaries, but the healthy communication part. When you fight, right? And I'm using air quotes because we're not obviously talking about physical fights. We're not talking about toxic fights where there's name calling and making people feel, horrible, hitting below the belt. We're talking about arguments or disagreements, but the key is what makes it healthy is when you make a conscious effort to be able to listen and hear the other person and withhold judgment. And so we want to think about what makes it possible to do that. I have three things that are important for having healthy conflict. That's giving time, that's the right timing, it's giving enough space and using the right tone. Those three things help to communicate to the other person that this is a safe space. That even if we disagree, this is still a safe space. So the timing, giving enough space, and the tone that you use are going to help you to be able to listen to the other, but also express yourself. And it's okay to be passionate, right? We all have different ways of expressing ourselves. But if you have those boundaries and those parameters, those limitations, um, then that'll make the communication possible, even in an argument or a conflict. And so the healthy boundaries are not just about telling your partner what you want, you listening to what they want, but it's also about having some non-negotiables in arguments. And I think every couple needs to establish these, right? Things like name calling, like cursing, like belittling, like anything that hits below the belt. And actually, the relationship researcher John Gottman and his wife Julie Gottman, they talk about these four things that are deadly for a relationship: defensiveness, criticism, contempt, and stonewalling. Those are all destructive ways of communicating. When you are critical, you're again hitting below the belt. It's not about what I want, but it's like you're horrible, you're bad. It's all critical, right? That makes the other person defensive. And defensiveness is not healthy because it doesn't allow you to truly connect. And contempt is a way, it's like a looking down on someone. And I really don't like you. And who would want to feel like that from their partner in a relationship? And then finally, stonewalling is when it's not just taking space to be quiet, but it's a passive aggressive way of cutting the other person off. So these are all negative, critical ways of engaging in a fight. And so you need to establish healthy limitations that say that it's non-negotiable that we will not engage in these destructive ways of communicating. I cannot tell you how many couples I have worked with where they say fighting has made our relationship better. Women that I work with have said that this helps them to be more authentic. See, resentment builds up when you are not sharing what you really feel, when you're not being vulnerable enough, and when you're so concerned with being perfect and how you say it and all of those things. As long as you think about not engaging in those four destructive forms of communication that I just said, the defensiveness, the criticism, the contempt, and the stonewalling, as long as you try to have healthy boundaries and you respect having the right timing, giving space, and using the right tone, then within that, you should be authentic. You should take the risk to be vulnerable and really share what you need to communicate. And so this has freed up so many people to where they say, I never thought I would feel this connected to my partner. I never thought that um, I would feel this authentic within myself. I never thought I could let go of the resentment that I was feeling because I was either holding everything in or I was trying to be perfect, right? So the fighting could actually be such a key part of taking your relationship to the next level. I want you to also know that this is all backed up by research too, right? That those who communicate more freely, where it's not so perfectionistic or overly calculated, like you're just free, you're sharing what you feel, you're being respectful, not to downgrade or belittle your partner, but you're really being honest. Um, that those couples are actually more satisfied. They report being more satisfied in the relationship overall. So don't be afraid to speak your truth and to truly listen to your partner. And you've probably heard a lot about the I statements. The reason I statements are so important is that they allow you to share honestly without where you're taking ownership of what you're sharing, right? Criticism is you're always doing this, you're bad, you. I statements are I'm taking ownership, I'm sharing the thing that I can most, that I am an expert in, which is how I feel, what I'm needing, what I'm wanting to share, right? So you want to make sure that you're not belittling, you're not Engaging, there's this idea that we have to be harsh in our honesty. The best form of authenticity is sharing your experience, your lived experience, and how you feel, reserving criticism or withholding criticism, right? So we can be honest without being harsh. We can be authentic without being feeling like um, we have to just be, go for the jugular, right? That's where the art of feminine soft communication comes in, where you can learn to balance being direct with also softening it a bit so that you're not tearing somebody down. Because the key to communication is making sure that the other person hears you, not just saying something just to say it. And what better way to have someone hear you than to speak from the heart, but also to say it in a way that they can receive it. Okay. So that's my spiel about healthy communication. But all of this is a part of what makes fighting a vital part of your relationship. So, in conclusion, we tend to think of conflict and fighting as bad. These are not things that you necessarily want to avoid. It can actually be a catalyst. It can really take your relationship to the next level by being a catalyst for growth and deeper connection. Because that's what we're truly wanting. If you're in a relationship with someone, most of the time you are seeking that connection, that sense of being seen, of being heard, and feeling like you're valued by that person. So, by setting healthy boundaries and fostering healthy communication, you can learn to navigate conflicts with grace and understanding. And that is what so many of the couples and women that I work with have experienced, as well as myself. All right. Tell me what you think in the comments, everybody. Where have you learned to fight in a healthier way? And how has conflict helped your relationship? All right. This is Dr. Nicole. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notifications bell, and like this video. Take care. See you next time.